Welcome back, Goddess Genesis fan. A commenter on a previous YouTube video requested more videos for people who are struggling in the early game, like below level 30. So I figured I'll help him out. And one of the most frequent questions that I see on social media from beginning players is always, help me form my team. Like, who should I use in my party? And I figured I would go over or give you my take on that. Now, some people say that all you got to do is just gain more levels and come back later, and you kind of brute force your way through it. And there's a certain element of truth to that, but I think that a properly built team is going to go a lot farther than a team that's not well built. And to me, a really well built team includes a tank, a healer, and a DPS. So let's say, there you go. Those are your two main components. You got your tank, your healer, and your DPS. And to fill out the party, you're going to want a second DPS, and you're going to want a support. So either a flex spot, like say someone like Medusa. Now these are all SR characters, so there's no SSR heroes here. If you pull long enough, you should get all of these SR characters because they're not that rare. So as a baseline, everybody should be able to make this party and use it at the bare minimum. Now, I wouldn't want to go through the entire game like this, but it'll be functional at least for the early game. Now, in general, SSR heroes tend to be more powerful than SR heroes. So as you start collecting more and more SSR heroes, you're probably going to want to include them in your lineup. Now, I'm going to go over the different roles and where I consider each of those classes. So for example, when it comes to tanks, my preferred order is always going to be the person on the left is the most valuable, and then it gets less valuable as you move to the right. So I consider Valkyrie a better tank than Marco Polo. Everybody will have Marco Polo, so she's going to be a solid option. And then the budget tank to me is Gawain, where, you know, if your mom says, I really need a tank, and you go to the 99-cent store, you get Gawain. Like, he's serviceable as a tank. Now, when it comes to healers, I think the best healers in the game are going to be Isabella. I don't have Athena, so you're going to have to pretend. Pretend that's Athena. And then I'm going to say Chang'e. And I mean, a lot of people, like the veteran players, are going to be like, oh my god, you're rating Chang'e, it's the worst. And I think in the early game, she is pretty awful. Like, she's my main healer, so I use her a lot. And in the mid game, late game, she's great. But in the beginning of the game, she's not very good. Until you start getting like her equilibrium perk, then, you know, then she starts kicking butt. But in the beginning, you might be frustrated if you're using Chang'e. Now, if you don't have any SSR healers, Venus is very capable, as is Cupid. Though they're perfectly fine to use until you start getting your SSR heroes. Now, when it comes to physical DPS, I'm going to say I go like this. I say Lilith and Lucifer are elite. They're top of the class. And then you're going to get into a second tier. You're probably going to have someone like Hades. You're going to have Tamamo, who I do not have. Let's see, where's the Tamamo replacement? Pretend that's Tamamo. And then you get someone like Cleopatra, who I also do not have. And then you also have someone like Michael. So the bottom tier for me are Michael, Cleopatra, and Tamamo. And the top two are going to be Lilith and Lucifer, and everybody is actually going to be able to get Lucifer. So as long as you do the quest, within 7 days, you should be able to pick up Lucifer, and she's going to be your main carry as a physical DPS until you get someone else like Lilith, if you want to use physical DPS. Now, if you don't have SSR physical DPS options, you do have other choices. Jester's very good. I used him up until level 49, so I used him pretty often. Hattori Hanzo's really good. I used her until level 34. And then there's kind of a big fall off after those two. You start getting characters like Fenrir, who's okay, and you get like, Let's see, who else is down here as physical DPS? Kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here. You got your Trash Panda over here. And there is Captain Kid, who I can't find right now for some reason. Oh yeah, there. So those are your SR options, but you definitely want to stick with Jester or Hattori Hanzo, because they're great physical DPS for an SR character. Now when it comes to magic DPS, my preference is Merlin as being best in class. And then it's kind of a fall off. You start getting to Mary, you start getting to, say, Gabriel, who I do not have. Pretend that's Gabriel. And then as an SR option, you have Pandora, who I really like. If you need a magic user and you only have SR options, Pandora is your girl. She hits really hard. Although she has a casting time, but she is very strong for an SR character. Now when it comes to the third or the fifth spot in the team, you have someone who's a flex or support or crowd control character. And I think the best one is Artemis. After that, I would probably go Dracula. Dracula will add a lot of sustain to your party. Just by casting his Soul Shackle, you reduce damage by 25%, and then an additional 25% of damage goes to him, and then 50% goes to the target of whatever attack is. So he automatically reduces all damage by 25% just by using that skill, and then he absorbs another 25%. And then he revives, so he's like a damage sponge. So the enemies may pile on top of him and kill him, and then he'll keep absorbing damage that turn, and then he'll revive and get to do another turn, before he really dies. So Dracula is great for sustain. For crowd control, Abe is pretty good as a mage. And then when you start getting into the SR options, you have someone like Poseidon, who's really annoying and is really good. And then you've got Medusa, who can petrify, and she'll drop a ton of poison on your enemies, which will help characters like Lucifer. Let's see, what else? Someone was telling me that Lancelot is a great option because his single target taunt has like no cooldown, so you keep taunting a different character every turn. That's a crowd control option. I'm not a Lancelot believer. If you think he's that great, then let me know. Maybe I need to look into him more. I do use him every day for Dark Gate, but so far I'm not impressed with Lancelot. But again, I'm not giving him a whole lot of usage outside of that one time a day. Other SR options you can use. Let's see here. So for the SR crowd control, I would throw in, let's see, as a flex support, Shakespeare's decent. He gives a lot of buffs to your party, but they're random, so there's an RNG element to using him. And I would also say, no, that's Vivian. I get these characters confused. I'm looking for Loki. Why do they all have green hair? There's Loki. So Loki is decent because her talent is her personality is so toxic that everyone gets poisoned at the start of the round. And that can help certain SSR characters by having poison. It lowers the magic damage resistance of all your enemies. So then your magic users are more effective. So if you have a party of all magic damage users, you may want to bring Loki, because then she'll increase everybody's damage across the board just by being in the party. Now, outside of the 5 main characters in your main party, you also have those 3 circles on the right, which are for your supports. Now, if you're unsure what a character's support skill is, if you tap on them and then you click on the support button, it'll show you what their ability is when they're in the support role. And the reason I bring up Apollo is he's best in class of all the supports. I really recommend, no matter what level you are, well, maybe if you're below level 25, maybe you don't need Apollo. But once you get to level 25 and above, enemies start hitting you with debuffs, and Apollo cleanses at least one debuff, and as you level him up, eventually he can cleanse the entire team of debuffs. And the reason that's important is when you start getting to enemies that are freezing you, they're petrifying you, they're putting you to sleep, they're poisoning you, all these bad things are happening, right? Like heal prevention. When all those debuffs get on you, especially if they're like freeze, sleep, petrify, they prevent you from acting, and then your enemies are just getting 2 turns to attack you while you can't do anything. So you really want to deal with that, and Apollo is the best support because he gets rid of those debuffs that will cripple you. Now, other characters I use in a support role are someone like Alice. What she does is she gives you more mana. She gives 2 mana, potentially 3, I think, if like RNG is in your favor, but she at least gives you 2 additional mana to use a turn. So if you have someone like Lucifer who's a mana whore and just sucks up all the mana for the party, and then you can't do anything at the end of the round, you need Alice to come in and give you some more mana. Now, other characters who I often use in the support role are someone like Pandora, who increases all the defense of your entire party, and she buffs the attack of one character, who's always going to be the character on the left. So you always, when I'm using SmartCast, and typically I run with SmartCast on, because it's faster, I always put my main DPS in the very left spot so that Pandora will always give the attack bonus to my main DPS. Now, other support characters, you can use Medusa. She will poison with a chance to petrify. And then this is kind of like low-key. I don't think a lot of people know about this, but Fenrir is a great support because he gives leech to your characters, which means when they attack, they heal a portion of the damage they deal. So the benefit of leech is it also lasts multiple turns, I believe. So he doesn't just heal you once, he heals you for 2 turns if your character is able to do a lot of damage. So Fenrir is a great support, and he's also a purple, which is important, a dark class. Now, if your team is taking a lot of damage and your main healer isn't enough, you may want to have healing in your support roles. And 2 great support healers are Venus and Cupid. Depending if you need a red or a blue, they're a solid option. I wouldn't use them both together, but they're kind of interchangeable in what they do. And then speaking of healers, I would say Chang'e is viable as a support because she will do magic damage to everybody, and she'll cast Charm, which is helpful for Lilith in her ultimate attack. Isabella is also a decent support. I believe her support ability, it gives a shield to everybody, and another useful shield is Valkyrie. As a support, she will put a shield on characters as well. So if you are fighting like high-end content where the enemies hit really hard, you may want to have a support that gives a shield to give some extra cushion when enemies are like 10 levels above you. So that's where you may want to use someone like Isabella or Valkyrie. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about yet is the colors, and you essentially get a faction buff from putting characters that are all from the same color together. Like if you get 3 characters, you get this circle in the top right where you get an elemental bonus. So for example, here I have 3 shadow characters, and it's giving a damage bonus of plus 10% to the entire party. And then if you can add in 2 more shadow characters, now you have 5, the bonus becomes 20%. So at 3 and at 5 characters from the same faction or color, in this case shadow, you get a bonus which is worth going for. Now, all the bonuses are not the same. Shadow I consider the best bonus to have because it's straight damage. And then the red bonus is also very good because it increases crit percentage. So that will also lead to more damage. Now, after that, I think there's a fall off. Actually, I would say the 3rd preferred bonus would be the light bonus, where you get damage reduction, 10 or 20%. And then you probably have the green bonus. This is one I don't really care for. you get a block percentage of 15 to 30%. And then you have the blue bonus, which is physical and magic evasion percentage goes up by a certain amount. Normally I wouldn't form a blue team. So now let's get into some examples of sample team building and what that looks like. Now, when you first start the game, you get 3 different possible SSRs: Valkyrie, Michael, or Gabriel. So let's say your first SSR happens to be Valkyrie. Then you're going to want to include someone like Lucifer, put her in the leftmost DPS spot. And then let's give her a healer. So I say Venus. The second DPS in Hattori. Then someone like Loki. Just by being in the party, she'll poison everyone. And then your Lucy will have a better chance of critting. Now as far as supports, Medusa will also have additional poison as well as a chance to petrify. You gotta have Apollo. And then Robin Ho. So now you've got 5 green and 3 reds. The red gives you a damage bonus, and you get the 30% block percentage by having 5 green in there. So that's an example team that you could make if you happen to draw Valkyrie as your first hero. Now if you were to get Michael, and you want to form a heavily red team, you wouldn't have, get my healer in there. You wouldn't have Valkyrie as a tank, so you would want to have Marco Polo. You want a second DPS in Hattori. And then as crowd control flex support, you could use someone like Poseidon. What else? Now in terms of support, you could have someone like Shakespeare, who will buff the party. Gotta have Apollo. Apollo's the best support. And then you could use someone like Little Red, who will inflict stacks of Ignite on the party, which will benefit Michael because he burns up those stacks of Ignite for additional damage. Now you may also be tempted to use the protagonist here as a hero, and let me just say, like, kick this dude out of your party as soon as possible. Like, this guy is dead to me because he's terrible. Like, if I'm doing AI arena, or I have to face your team in some form of PvP as a potential team to fight, if I see the protagonist, I consider him a noob, like, detector, and as soon as I see protagonist, I'm gonna fight you. Like, I'm gonna be drawn to any team that has the protagonist because I feel like he's terrible, and if you're using him in your party, then you probably don't have a very good party. That's what I think of the protagonist. Now, another option, of course, if you have a team like this, is actually to replace Michael or Hattori with Lucifer, because she's a much better DPS than either of them. And then you may want to bring in some more green if you want to add 3 green to the party, but she's probably a better option than Michael. And nobody would look at you sideways if you had her instead of Michael as your main DPS. And you could also use Hattori there. So that's another option. Now, if you were to start with Gabriel, I don't have Gabriel, but let's pretend that's Gabriel. Then you're gonna gotta have your healer. You got your tank. And then I would probably use Lucifer, to be honest. I think she's one of the best DPS you're gonna have in the early game. And then probably go this route with Loki again. Throw in some Medusa for Petrify and Poison. And then if you want to complete a blue team, you can add Shakespeare for some buffs. And actually, if you're not going to run Apollo, you could use Poseidon, because he can also cleanse debuffs, and he would be a blue. So now you've got a team of 5 blue and 3 green. So those are some examples of how you can try to maximize that faction buff of getting combinations of 5 and 3 while still having a pretty decent party that benefits from that. Okay, good luck. Have fun, everybody.